Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Upskill Space. In this video, I'm going to share with you a top SQL interview questions, especially for the role of data scientist. Now, these questions are not going to be exactly come in your interviews. However, if you strictly follow the concepts discussed while discussing these questions, that's what going to come. The questions are compiled by collecting questions around multiple interviews that I have taken a couple of them personally, as long as my friends have taken them. So the concepts discussed with these questions will be the one that's our most asked concepts for SQL. So it is more about the concepts learning than the question specifically learning. However, I can guarantee you, if you can catch the concept, you are going to crack the interviews that you will come across. Now let's go ahead and see what questions are we going to discuss. And of course, each of the questions are linked with one concept, as I said, and those are going to be the important highlight in this video. So in this videos, I'll discuss around 5 concepts with the help of 5 different questions, as you see in my screen. So these questions are certainly framed around a predefined database or table of a database. I'm going to show you the table itself, and then we'll take each of these questions specifically and see also what will be the solutions. A lot of you have asked me for the data set in my previous videos, but let me tell you, in interviews, it's most likely you will not be given the actual data set for the SQL question. Rather, you'll be asked to suppose or assume that you have a table with certain attributes of certain features, and you are supposed to imagine that and write your queries around it. So to make that simulation or that interview setup intact in this video, here also I'm just going to assume a table with certain columns and name, and around that these questions are built, and we are going to see how to write a SQL query for them. Also highlight on the key concepts touched upon by each of the questions. So this is the table that we were talking about. Let's assume the table is called employee table, and it has the columns name as given here: employee ID, employee name, employee salary, employee manager name, and then department ID. So this, and as I said you, in interviews, you'll be given some rough idea like this. In fact, I'm showing you the table, but the interviewer will dictate verbally, and you are supposed to write it down. So get familiar with the terminology like columns, table name, or rows, because this you are supposed to understand and write it on the paper, and interviewer is not going to help you with that. However, if you get stuck or confused, of course you can question back, and with confidence, do not feel as if you did a mistake by not remembering them. It happens that sometimes you forget them. Do ask multiple times, as long as you don't literally understand completely, because if you cannot understand the architecture, or if you have given many tables, then in that case schema of the each of the tables, how these tables are linked up, you it would be hard for you to understand the questions given as well as write the SQL query for that. So it is important you understand the overall schema. Although in this case it is a very simple schema with a single table, but it's possible you'll have at least 2 tables given and to test your join skill sets. But here we'll try to do the join part with some different type of join discussed. All right, let's quickly jump to our first question. And the first question says, find the employee's name whose name starts with M and belongs to finance department. If you notice in the schema of the table, we don't have exactly department name given, but rather department ID given. So here, when it's saying a finance department, a corresponding department ID is also given to you, and using this, you are supposed to write the SQL query. I'm going to pause the video for a couple of seconds here. I want you to first write down your rough SQL query on your paper and then try to match with one. This would be the best practice to see if you are thinking in the right direction and if you're writing the right SQL query before actually jumping with the answers that I'm going to share. Hope you have your solution ready. Now let's hop onto the solution that I have for you. And here is my solution. So you can write a query something like select employee name from table, which is employee in this case, where employee name like and then starts with is basically denoted with a percentage symbol after the letter and then department ID 10. Well, if you did not notice, this question is basically more focusing on testing your two knowledge. If you are familiar with the where clause or not, that's the first one. And second, are you familiar with the like key clause? So like is the one that helps you to apply regular expression or query through regular expression given a query statement or the problem statement at hand. Also, additionally, it's checking if you're familiar with applying multiple conditions while fetching a query or while fetching a record from the data table. That's what it tested. So is it interesting? Certainly yes. Let's go on to check the next question. And here is our next question. And that says, find the second highest salary from the employee table. You know, a table has many employees and each one of will have some salary given. Out of that, I'm interested to just pick out the highest salary. Well, this question can be solved multiple ways. In this video, I have tried to solve it with the most simplest way. The further extension of this question can also be given to that can ask you to fetch top end salaries, which we can discuss in our next sequence. But before I show you the solution, please write down your rough solution on paper and then we'll proceed. So here is your solution. So before I discuss the query itself, let me discuss my logic for this problem. As it is asking me for the second highest salary or second maximum salary, what if I know the first maximum salary? Can I apply a simple where clause on it? Yes. So that's the logic of the answering this question. So what I'm doing is I'm first going ahead and finding the maximum salary. And once I have the maximum salary, I'm filtering out all salaries lesser than the maximum salaries. So that will exclude the maximum salary. And from the rest of the salary, I'm just again picking the next maximum, which would be the second highest maximum. It's very simple. Yeah, so here is my query. So this is a question that testing your understanding of subquerying. Do you understand and can you make use whenever required writing subqueries or nested queries what we call? And that's what happening in this question. If you see here is my query, I say select max salary as second maximum salary. So as is a keyword that helps you to form the alias. It's optional, that's not asked in the question, but I have added additionally. From employee where salary is lesser than, again, from which salary? The maximum salary where there is no filter. So select maximum salary from employee. Well, this part, what you see, um, that is the subquery part, and this question is all around that. As I said you, there can be a more complex form that can be built on top of this question, or there could be a followed up question that can ask you to find not second highest salary, but maybe fifth highest salary or sixth highest or nth highest salary. That could be the more general question. Well, that can not be achieved that easily with this approach for the simply reason, if you have to say, let's say your n is 10, you have to write here 10 subqueries, which can be done, but it becomes tedious and fixed solution. You cannot extend it or scale it to any n logic. So how can you solve in that case? So in that case, you should be familiar with using a partition approach. Partition approach can help you to partition your data and then pick any rank that you wish. So if you are not familiar with the partition functions like rank row number, dense rank, please go back and read about them. So, I mean, it's very rarely that those questions are asked directly, but again, it's good that you should know them and keep them in handy whenever you go for an interview. Cool. Let's see the next question, and that's our third question, and it says, find the employee ID and name who had been manager once. Well, that's very important question, and this sort of questions are put around to understand if you really understand. Can you really visualize the data to number of dimensions than just a 2D dimension? And so that's it is. Well, this question is also going to test your concept of something called self join, and if you are familiar with that, it this question is going to be very easier for you. Before I display you the solution that I have, please write down your rough solution. So this is our solution. So the idea here is you need to create two copies of the same table and then match if a name under employee name also exists under manager name. If they are matching, it's possible this employee had been the manager once a time. And that could be minimum one time, and it can be maximum any number of times. That's the whole logic of this question, and this is testing your self-joining concept. It's indirectly or in general also join concept. So if you're not familiar with the types of joins in SQL, please go back and read. This is going to be one of the crucial questions around built around the SQL concept. Type of joins, group by or aggregations, what we call in general. These are the concepts that's always tested out with the help of within a question, right? Here is our solution. So first I'm creating two copies of the same table called employee TB1. That's an alias. TB1 is alias. TB2 is again alias. The same table, if you have to create two times, you need to give some distinct alias. So my query says select TB1 employee ID. The question says to fetch both employee ID and name. Name is missing here, but you can include by comma separated. From employee TB1, inner join employee TB2 on TB1 dot employee ID and TB2 on employee ID. I'm joining both the table on employee ID, and where TB1 employee name is equal to TB2 employee manager name. That is a very important where clause that satisfies the condition that an employee once had been a manager will be selected in this query. If anyone had never been a manager, would never have a name under the column employee manager name, and that particular record or employee will never be picked out. That's the whole idea about it. This question indirectly also tests your understanding of how data are stored inside SQL or database tables. If you do understand that, or you simply have by hearted through some online certification, or if you really have some hands-on, everything is tested around this question. Hopefully you are enjoying so far. Again, final recommendation, please go back and read about types of SQL um, join. That is going to be a must ask question, or a question built around that concept is always going to be there, irrespective of what role you apply for. Right, so here is our fourth question, and that says find the average salary by department. So you know there are employees in, and it's possible an employee can be belonging to minimum one department and maximum any number of departments. So the question just says get the salary by each department, average salary by each department, and it's not nowhere discussing about this combination of a single employee can belong to many departments, but assume that's possible. But assuming that this data set has every employee tagging to a single department and we have to compute this average salary. So what do you think? How can we solve this problem? What all fundamentals of SQL will be tested in this question? Think about it before we go to see the solution. And this is our solution. Well, so the solution says select department ID, comma, average of salary, adds average salary from employee, group by department ID. As you could have already make out, this question is testing your aggregation operation understanding. So if you are familiar with what group by does, what are the inbuilt aggregate functions, that's what this question is all about. Otherwise, it's quite simple. So it also is trying to understand if you are familiar with an inbuilt functions. Yeah, right. So you should know them. And this question is, it's very cakewalk. Let's go on to see our last question in the video, and that says find the employee names working in more than one department. Well, as I said in my previous question number 4, it's possible that an employee can be linked with more department, or it's possible that an employee at the same time, or maybe any time in its working history, would have linked up with more than one department. Right? It happens. It's very usual thing. You go ahead, you join a company working with maybe a technical department, and later your interest goes with recruitment department, so you go to HR department. Right? Later maybe you like to be a leader, so you go to some other department. So it's possible over a period of time you'll be assigned or tagged with a different department ID, and that's the idea. Maybe for some reason the employer wants to filter out these employees who have been working for multiple departments at a time, and we have to just query that. What do you think? What do we need here? Which fundamentals, and how our query will look like? Will it be complex, easy, medium? Don't know. Think about it. You write down your rough idea, and then we'll discuss our solution. And that's the solution, very easy. So the query says select employee name from employee, group by department underscore ID, having count of employee underscore name greater than 1. Whereas if you're not familiar with how does having work, you first read about it before understanding this query. So this question is whenever you have to find something related to the concept of finding duplicates, or finding duplicates is nothing but more than one occurrence at certain level. Here the level is department ID. Then you can do that with having clause. So this is testing if you are familiar with having clause. How, and if you are familiar with that, you can do this. As you can see the solution, you can write the solution very easily in 3 to 4 lines. However, if you were not, you will struggle hard. And that's all the question is testing. So also there could be a follow-up question that can ask you, or before this question they can ask you, do you understand the difference between where and having? This is one of the favorable SQL interview questions, and from one of the top questions asked so far. So get familiar with the difference of where and having. For example, where do you want to use where clause, and where do you want to use having clause? Can I use where every time, or and having every time? Other way, can I use where after group by, and can I use having before group by? So this is going to be interesting. Read about it, and hopefully you like these questions. Well, let me remind you again, these are among the top asked fundamental SQL concepts in the interviews for data scientist positions. The questions can be little bit twisted depending on what data set they give to you, but the fundamentals will be same. So read about this, like select clause, having clause, where clause, like keyword, and types of joins. If you are familiar with them, and also do not forget about partition functions like rank, row number, dense rank, difference between rank and dense rank. If you know this all, it's more likely you'll crack the interviews very easily. Hopefully these questions were helpful to you. If you want more questions related to data engineering positions, yes, there can be more difficult level of SQL question when it comes to data engineering position compared to data scientist position. So if you want that list, let me know in the comment box. And I also have some more questions around SQL Please do watch the videos. I'll put the link in the description box. Till then, I come with the next video. Have a happy learning.